so if you are in the market for a house right now, if you've been thinking about it and you've heard it all, you've been hearing it all over the news or all over anywhere, that this is the time to buy, interest rates are low, you need to get out there. If you're looking or thinking about purchasing, this is the time. Well, here are 5 things that you need to be aware of, like over and above everything else, aware of when you are making that offer, because it is a little bit competitive. Other than knowing that the interest rates are low and that we need to go out there and start looking, inventory is also really low. What does that mean? That means that the same buyers in the typical price range, so let's just say we're looking at 200,000, there are more buyers looking than there are houses available or that were available before. So that means that there's a little bit more stiffer competition. So what we need to do is make sure your offer, when it's submitted, stands out a little bit more, just a little bit more solid or a little more attractive to the seller. So how do we do that? Here's 5 things I've kind of thought about or seen over the years that really do work as far as talking to a seller and negotiation with the seller. So the number 1 thing, I say it all the time, pre-approval. So we're not even going to start looking at houses until we have your pre-approval. And that is for your sake, for my sake, for the seller's sake. So we want to make sure that we know what we have in our back pocket as far as financing goes. So that's gonna be the first thing we wanna do. Get you set up with a mortgage lender, preferably local, always local, to help you get into financing. So figuring out how many years you're doing, what type of loan you're doing, how much money you'll need to put down, what closing costs are look out, get all of that figured out so that you have the confidence when you see a house, we don't have to worry about the financing aspect. Because not only is it a big decision to actually decide or choose the house, but it's a big financial commitment, big financial decision. So if we can take that off the table for you and having to worry about that, then that's one thing we need to make sure we have a pre-approval solid so that when we see the house, that's the only decision we have to worry about is this the right property for you and your family. Number 2, so when we do find that property and you made the choice and we've started to negotiate, what we want to make sure is we have a deposit that's structured to show the seller that we are serious about this property. A typical deposit is usually 1% of the sales price, so we might want to go a little bit higher and really just let them know that we mean business, we want this property, we're committed financially to buying this house. And so it is protected for you, so there's not a lot of fear where you're going to lose that money. So we want to make sure we stick to the terms of the agreement. Another video, side video, but also we want to make sure that we have a little bit of a competitive deposit so that they know, again, we are serious about this offer. So that's 2. Number 3, closing date flexibility. It may not be a big deal for you to move the date up a few days or back a few days. So if the seller is purchasing a home, which they're selling theirs, they're going to have to go somewhere. We want to make sure we can give them the comfort of knowing we have some flexibility in our closing date so that it might work for them so they can not be homeless for a couple of days or worry about their stuff, so the timelines line up for them as well. So that could be something that we just need to know, having that openness to closing dates, moving it up, moving it back, holding off a little bit, some occupancy agreements, all types of things that we can do to make sure that the seller is comfortable knowing that he can move forward, especially if we're trying to make the timeline also competitive. So keeping it a shorter closing time. So, 35, 40 days, as long as it takes to get your loan. So as long as the lender tells us we have that much time, they can get the loan done. That's how quick we're going to try to let the sellers know we're purchasing the house. So a little bit of flexibility on the dates goes a long way for the sellers. Number 4, another thing we want to make sure is the inspection period. So we know the house, the due diligence period is your time to do your homework on the property. So you've decided you liked it. Everybody's in agreement on the terms. Now we just need to make sure that you're okay with the condition of the home. That's going to take some time to get an inspector out there, making sure you've seen the house again. All of those things, typically we give it 12 to 14 days, so we have plenty of time to do that. Well, doing that gives the seller is taking the house off the market for a little while for us to be able to do that. So what we want to do is probably shorten that a little bit. So I'm thinking 8 to 10 days is probably plenty for us to have enough time to get an inspector out there, do the homework that we need for you to feel comfortable moving forward and the seller not worrying about us taking our time. So a shorter inspection period can go a long way too. The other thing, the final thing, is a clean offer. So not adding in a lot of contingencies, not having a lot of demands and not a lot of terms. That doesn't mean we're not going to try to get you what you want, but we want to make sure we're getting exactly the things that you want and everything else stays off. So that's going to be a really concise, clean offer with really clean terms, and that's what we're going to try to do. Get you to win on terms, get the seller to agree to that, and then we'll just get everybody to the closing table. So making sure your offer stands out, those are 5 things we can do. There's plenty more that we can do. Give me a call so we can talk about where you stand or where you are in that whole process, and we can get going from there.